Chapter 10 Vibhuti Yoga, the unitive recognition of positive values.
The word Vibhuti means unique value, power, the manifestation, vastness, the glory. Unique means that which is special, that which is non-imitational. Structurally, when we are studying the Gita, chapter by chapter, the teaching begins to become more and more subtle and more subjective. It's going within till you come to the 9th chapter when he has spoken of the highest possible knowledge about the Absolute. When we speak in philosophical language, we say Absolute, because Absolute refers to a principle, and religion makes anthropomorphization. Takes a law or takes a value and gives it a human form, and that is anthropomorphic, easier to relate for a human being. But the truth is always a principle, which is non-localized, it is impersonal, it does not belong to anybody, it is all-pervading. So that high concept of God, or the Absolute, is presented in the 9th chapter. Now after the 9th chapter, we find that one by one, the objective side is also explained. How does this God manifest in the objective world? How can we experience God in the world that we live? So there are categories and subcategories that are being enumerated here by Krishna. He gives one category after another of unique values, of those special values in which His power, His greatness is manifesting. It is possible to recognize God by seeing these values manifesting in our own lives. He started with Atma, that I am seated in the self of all as the Atma, the self. And from that he has gone on enumerating one set of values after another. All Arjuna's doubts have been dispelled, and now there is a positive conquest of knowledge. Now he is going to affirm, this is it, this is the divine, this is where I am manifesting. And this will lead on to the Vishwarupa Darshana, that is the most positive manifestation of the divine as the Vishwarupa Darshana. Krishna begins with the enumeration of general spiritual values and the expressions of a spiritual person. What are the qualities of a spiritual person? Then later on, there is a more elaborate explanation. So it starts by the initiative of Krishna, which had taken place in the last chapter 2. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Bhuya eva mahabhaho shruну me paramam vachaha yatte aham priyamanaya vakshami hitakamayaya. Listen again, O mighty armed, to my supreme word, which I, desiring your well-being, shall tell you, so dear and favorably disposed. So this again says the adoption is complete, as we keep on stressing that in a wisdom context or a Upanishadic context, there are two counterparts. One is the teacher and the other is the Shishya. And there has to be an adoption between them. They have to accept one another. There should be no friction. There should be no disagreement. There should be no inward rancor of any sort. So here the words Sri Krishna is using show that this kinship between Krishna and Arjuna has become very complete. He says, desiring your well-being, to you who are so dear and favorably disposed, you have become a dear one to me. To you I shall again tell you, which means that this has a kinship with the previous chapter. Some aspects of this previous chapter are being stated again. Na me viduhu suraganaha prabhavam na maharishiyaha aham adir hi devanam maharishinam cha sarvashaha. So that mystery, the divine mystery, is again expressed here. He says, nobody knows me. Na me viduhu suraganaha. The suras are the devas, the gods, and the rishis are the great sages. Devas come in the Vedic concept. In the Vedic way of thinking, we think of the suras, the devas. Rishis come in the pre-Vedic context. Even before the Vedas, we had the rishis, who were the great thinkers. And even they cannot know the origin of the Absolute. So even their understanding falls short of a complete understanding of the Absolute. So it is so supreme, so high, so difficult that even the gods and the sages, they cannot understand Him. because Lord itself is the source of these very gods and the sages. To know their own source means to know the Absolute, and that they fall short of. Yo mam ajam anadim cha veti loka maheshwaram asammudha samartyeshu sarva papehi pramuchyate. But he who understands me as unborn and beginningless, as the great Lord of the world, that man, undeluded among mortals, is absolved from all sins. So here the absolute nature is again stressed. When you say unborn and beginningless, means eternal, and the great Lord of all, the common source for all of the world. And his sins are absolved. So here when you talk of sin, you always think of virtue. If a person is not sinful, he is virtuous. But here when you say absolved from all sins, it means you are attaining a neutral state in which you are even going beyond the virtuous state. You are not thinking of being just a virtuous person, but you are attaining that pure absolute, which is beyond virtue. These ideas of sin and virtue don't occur. It is such a supreme absolute purity. That is the highest state. Now he tells us about the spiritual values in verses 4 and 5. Buddhir jnanam asammoha kshama satyam damaha shamaha. These are global attitudes of the spirit, means universal attitudes. Any spiritual person anywhere in the world will have these attitudes. Buddhir jnanam, that is reason, wisdom. Asammoha, non-delusion. Kshama, patience. Satyam, truth. Damaha, self-restraint. Samaha, calmness. So these are global attitudes, and the same when they become polarized movement of spirit. Polarized means two opposites. Sukham dukkham, bhavo bhavo, bhayam cha bhayam. Sukha dukkha means happiness and sorrow, pleasure, pain. Bhavo abhavo means becoming and non-becoming. And bhayam cha bhayam means fear and fearlessness, sense of danger and sense of security. When our consciousness becomes polarized, we get these two experiences. Either we have a pleasant experience or unpleasant. Either we have an insecure feeling or we get a secure feeling. But higher than that is a global attitude of spirit. When you get a global attitude of spirit, then you say your reason functions, wisdom functions, patience, truth, self-restraint and calmness. So these attitudes belong more to a philosophical context. And the next verse, we have a more religious series of values, but again with the same scheme. The first line gives us a global series and the second line gives polarized consciousness. That is ahimsa, samata, tushtis, tapodanam, yasho, ayashaha. Ahimsa means non-hurting. Samata means balance. Tushtihi means contentment. Tapaha means austerity. Danam means benevolence. Yashaha and ayashaha, that is fame and shame. Prithak vidaha are the various distinct attitudes of being arising from me alone. These are all the series of spiritual values. Then he says, Maharishayaha sapta purve chatvaro manavas tatha. When we talk of our wisdom, our culture, it takes on two forms. One is a private and one is a public. When we think of the rishis, they are secluded people living away from society, and they are not bound by the rules of society. They are steeped in their own spiritual freedom. And when we think of the manus, manus are those people who have laid down the laws for our social life, how we should live in society. And they are concerned with the conducting of social life. Madbhava manasa jata yesham loka imaha prajaha. So Sapta Rishis are the 7 sages, and Chatvaraha Manavaha, the 4 law-giving manus. And in different contexts, the Sapta Rishis have different groupings. In the Mahabharata, we accept Marichi, Atri, Angiras, Pulaha, Katu, Pulastaya and Vashishta as the 7 rishis. In the Puranas, even Narada is accepted as one of the 7 rishis. So these 7 rishis and the 4 lawgivers are born from my own process of becoming and mind, and from these all progeny in the world. So the very origin of all beings in this world is traced back to the Absolute, to the Lord. Both the mystical, traditional and the spiritual values which are coming from the rishis. What is their source? Krishna says, I am the source. And all the laws that have been laid down for our social life, like Manu Smriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, these are all the Manus. who laid down the code of conduct as to how we should lead our life, the Hindu way of life, if you think. They're all coming down from the Manus. That is called the Smritis. They are also traced back to Krishna. God has produced them. God is the source of them. So one is the Shruti. Shruti means revealed knowledge, which has come to the Rishis by revelation, which is unchanging. Like the Upanishads and the Vedas, they are Shrutis. They can never be changed. And the other is Smritis, which are to be remembered as our codes of conduct, like the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Puranas, Dharma Shastras. These are all Smritis. These also have originated from God for different purposes, for guiding people's lives here on earth. Etam vibhutim yogam cha mama yo veti tatvatah so avikampena yogena yujyate na atra samshayah. He who understands according to fundamental principles my unique value together with its unitive balance by non-wavering contemplation attains union. In this there is no room for doubt. So here he uses the word vibhuti. Vibhuti is the unique value. And yoga. Yoga and vibhuti go together. Yoga means keeping a balance, making our mind balanced, our intellect balanced, and attaining a neutral union. Because when we talk of absolute, absolute always is a state of neutrality. It is neither this nor that. It's a state where consciousness is its own pure state. And that can be attained through the practice of yoga. Avikampena. Kampana means to quiver or to tremble. When you say avikampena, it means by non-wavering, when it is steadied. When that yoga becomes steadied, when the contemplation becomes steadied, then you say you attain to that union, you attain to that yoga, that there is no room for doubt. He gives certitude. He assures that those who practice non-wavering contemplation attain this union. Aham sarvasya prabhavoho mattah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitah. All happenings here to be viewed dynamically as a process of becoming and not merely statically. When we think of creation and what has been created by God, everything is moving. When you envision it in your mind, it should not be envisioned as something static. Though the intellect, buddhi, can only understand still pictures one at a time, it cannot grasp how everything is in a continuous state of flux. For that you need contemplation. With contemplation and intuition, a person can understand this whole complex flux-like creation that has been projected or that has come out from the Lord. So he says, I am the source of all. From me everything moves outward. Understanding thus, the wise adore me, endowed with the intuition of pure becoming. So this intuition, bhava samanvitaha, the intuitive powers can be developed by the help of yoga. It's like getting another eye, the third eye, and with the help of that understanding, a person is able to grasp the secret workings of this flux-like world, flux-like creation. Matchittaha madgata prana bodhayantaha parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. This is the description of a person, seeker, with their relational minds affiliated to me, their life tendencies penetrating in me, enlightening each other and ever conversing about me. They are constant, content and rejoice. So what is the state of a spiritual person? According to the Gita, it's a very normal state. It is not a state with trances or abnormalities of any sort. Though even the abnormal trance state can have some spiritual quality, but a normal spiritual person is one who is conversing about me. He is telling other people about his spiritual experiences and he is learning from other people also. So enlightening each other and ever conversing about me, they are content and rejoice. So this is the model of a spiritual person according to the Gita. Not a freaky person at all, and neither one with any abnormalities. Though in the popular mind we find that if a person has some abnormality, that person can be considered very spiritual. If a person is in a trance, they say that is spiritual. But according to the Gita, that is not necessary. As a normal person can be very spiritual, provided that person is engaged in this enlightening one another, conversing about God also. So the relational consciousness means chittaha. The consciousness in us is called chittam. So that chitta, which is the cause for our intellect to work, that is called the relational consciousness. So that relational consciousness is affiliated to me. It means there is a subtle union between a person's reasoning faculties and the divine because of the intuitive faculties that are developed. And what is the reward of this practice of yoga? It is self-realization. So we are not looking for siddhis. Patanjali Yoga talks of getting siddhi. Siddhi means you get some power, you attain some special abilities. But here what we want is self-realization, because the gift of intelligence is the greatest gift. What is the greatest gift that we can get as human beings? It's the gift of divine intelligence, supreme intelligence, good reasoning and clear thinking. That will make life so beautiful, and that is the best gift that we can get. So self-realization. We realize our own true self. To such established in unbroken union with affectionate adoration, I grant that kind of unitive understanding by which they attain to me. So there is a bipolarity here. The aspirant seeker is seeking, he is striving with worship, with devotion. And from the other side, by compassion or grace, God grants the unitive understanding. And when they get the unitive understanding, they know. So it is through the understanding, the knowledge that is of a unitive nature. Unitive nature means that which can bring everything together, which makes you understand everything, which is the same as yoga. Where the yoga is of the buddhi yoga, that is the gift that is attained. With affectionate adoration, priti purvakam bhajatam, priti, that is with affection. The worship towards the Lord is with affection. Tesham eva anukampartham aham ajnanajam tamaha nashyami atma bhavasto jnanadipena bhavasta. Specifically because of compassion for them, I, abiding as what has become the self, destroying the ignorance born of darkness by the shining lamp of wisdom. Again he says that it is the compassion. God takes pity on the worshipper, and because of that destroys the ignorance born of darkness by the shining lamp of wisdom. Lamp is a very favorite analogy used in all Vedanta, because shining lamp has its counterpart as darkness. Darkness is the ajnana, or what is not known. And because there is light, you can say you have the sense of darkness. Darkness just means the absence of light. It's a negation of light. It's not anything as such, but it is just the absence of light. Similarly, ignorance also is the absence of knowledge. And when the lamp of knowledge lights in a person, ignorance is destroyed. And that person gains that status of a realized person. Now we come to another set of 7 verses where Arjuna is interested in knowing how does the Lord manifest in the objective world. When we look out, we are seeing the objective world. So far he has been talking more about the inner world, the spiritual world, or the subjective world. Now Arjuna wants to know how this divine can be seen in the objective world. How can we experience the power or the divinity of God in the external world? So he says, Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, Adidevam Ajam Vibhum, Ahustvam Rishayah Sarve, Deva Rishi Naradas Tatha, Asito Devalo Vyasah, Swayam Chaiva Bravishime. So he says, you are the Supreme. So he acknowledges and recognizes all that Krishna says. He agrees, so you can say the adoption is complete now. And he names Narada, Asita, Devala and Vyasa. So Narada is considered as a Deva Rishi. In the Puranas he is a Kalahapriya. He enjoys making mischief and quarrel creating. But elsewhere he is shown as a revaluator. He takes understanding of the Vedic and the non-Vedic people, he brings them together. Narada also acts as an interpreter. So you have Narada Bhakti Sutras. And then he talks of Asita. Asita was the son of a Rigveda Rishi and a poet, that is Kashyapa. And Devala was the son of Asita. And Vyasa, of course, is the revaluator who revalues all the wisdom of the past. You are the Supreme Absolute, the Supreme Abode, the Supreme Purifier, the Eternal Divine Person, the Primal Divinity, the Unborn, the All-Pervading. All the sages say this of you. The divine Narada, So to Asita, Devala, Vyasa, and you yourself confirm it to me. Sarvam etad hritam manye yanmam vadashi keshava nahi te bhagavam vyaktim vidur devana danavaha. I believe that all this that you say is valid, O Keshava. Neither the divinities nor the demons, O Lord, know your unique nature. He says, in spite of all these authorities like Narada, Asita, etc., he relies on Krishna. What you say is valid. And the interesting thing here is he gives equal status to Devas and the Danavas. He says, neither the Devas nor the Danavas, that is, neither the divinities nor the demons, neither of them know your unique nature. In regard to this absolute knowledge, even the Devas are not capable. So they are equal to demons as far as this knowledge is concerned, knowing his unique nature. You yourself indeed know yourself by yourself. This means that this absolute or Brahman that we are speaking of all the time belongs to a category of itself which can be known only by itself. You can't compare it with any other thing because it is absolute. Absolute is best known by the absolute, by its own norms. Presiding principle of elemental expression and of becoming, light of shining ones, Lord of the universe. So he gives a lot of epithets here. Purushottama, that is the Uttam Purush, most high Godhead. Bhuta Bhavana Bhuteshu, that is presiding principle of elemental expression. Deva Deva, that is light of the shining ones. And Jagatpate, Lord of the universe. Be pleased to tell me without omission of your divine perfections, of your own self, by which specific expressions you pervade these worlds while remaining apart. So, how does this existence that we have around us reveal God? This existence is a revelation of God, or existence is revealing God, but God is not to be identified with existence. That is why he says, while remaining apart. The Absolute exists without being tainted by its own manifestation. Though the Absolute or Brahman has created this world, it still is not tainted by this world. It is not affected by its own manifestation. How shall I constantly meditate on you? Know you, O mystic yogi, in what particular expression, O blessed one, are you to be cognized by me? Here Arjuna calls Krishna a yogi, because this vibhuti that we speak of, this is connected with yoga. Yogis are also called magicians, and these values will impress the mind of a contemplative person. A person when he is in a contemplative mood, in a thoughtful mood, in a pondering mood, then that person will be able to have a grasp of these values. Vistarena atmano yogam vibhutim cha janardana bhuyah kathayah triptirhi shinvato na asti me amritam. So he says, tell me again in detail of your balanced perfections and specific expressions, for I am never tired of hearing your words of ambrosial immortality. The seeker is always compared like a bee sipping the nectar in the heart of a lotus. He is never tired of sipping the honey. Then we find the enumeration starts from the 19th verse. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Hante te kathiyashyami divyahi atma bhutayah pradhanyatah kuru shrestah nasti anto vistarasya me. There is no end to the enumerations that I can do. And he uses the word hanta. Hanta means there is a hesitation of the spirit to become the subject of overt commonplace discussion. A truly spiritual person is not a person who likes to broadcast these things in an open place. There is a certain reluctance of the spirit to overt discussions. So he says there is no end to this enumerations. I shall recount to you the bright glorious values that pertain to myself, graded according to their importance, O best of the Kurus. But there is no end to the elaboration of items pertaining to me. Aham Atma Gudakeshas. So where does he start from? The most important is that I am the soul. Aham Atma. The Lord is the soul. First stated in terms of self and then passing on to items of cosmological significance. Then he says, I am the soul seated in the heart of all beings. And I am the beginning, the middle and even the end of beings. So you see, time and eternity are brought together here. When we think of the beginningless absolute, there is no time there. There is no space there. It is timeless. When you say eternal, it means there's no time, no sense of time. It's when we are in our relative world, we have the experience of time as past, present and future. And when he says, I am the beginning, the middle and even the end, then he's bringing this idea of eternity and time close together. And after centering himself within as the soul, Lord is seated in the hearts of all. He then starts speaking of the cosmological aspect according to our Puranas and Vedas. Adityanam aham Vishnu. See, there are 12 Adityas. The sun is one of them. And Vishnu is also one of the Adityas. That is Dhata, Mitra, Aryama, Rudra, Yama, Varuna, Surya, Bhaga, Vivaswan, Pusha, Savita, Tvashta and Vishnu. These are the 12 Adityas according to the Vedic classification. So of this group of Adityas, he is Vishnu. Jyotisham, of luminaries, I am the sun. Sumam Ravihi. Sun is one of the stars of the galaxies. But as far as we are concerned, it is the most important stars, the most important luminary, the shining one, because our life depends on the sun. Aham Marichihi, of the Maruts. Just like the Adityas, they have also the Maruts. And of those Maruts, he is Marichi. They are like the storm gods. And among the stars, I am the moon. It's interesting that the moon has been compared to a star. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of luminaries, the radiant sun. I am Marichi of the Maruts. Among the stars, I am the moon. Of the Vedas, I am the Sama Veda. The Rig, Yajur and Sama. The Rig Veda is the Samhita. It's the collection of all the verses. And since song is a more refined form of speech, we say that is the highest of the Vedas, the Sama Veda. Of divinities, I am Indra. Indra is the king of the heavens. In respect of the senses, I am the mind, because the mind is called the sixth sense also, the one which is coordinating all the other five. And of life expressions, I am pure intelligence. Aham Chetana. Rudranam Samkarascha Asmi Vittesho Yaksharakshasam. This is another series which is earthy now. We started with the most profound, that is the soul and God as being one. Then we go to the cosmic luminaries like the sun and the stars and the moon. And then we come down to the earthy ones who are more of this earth. Rudranam, of the Rudras, I am Shankara, because he causes happiness. When he talk of Shiva in the form of Shankara, that which causes happiness. Yaksha Rakshasam, of Yakshas and Rakshasa, that is a radical thing, they are very radicals. And Vittesa, Lord of wealth. Of the Vasus, I am Pavaka. And among heights, I am Meru. Meru is the mythological center of the world, and it is also the highest mountain. Of the Rudras, I am Sankara. Of the Yakshas and the Rakshasas, Vittesha. Of the Vasus, I am Pavaka. And among heights, I am Meru. Of the 8 Vasus, elemental divinities, suggesting brightness, goodness or beneficence. That is the role of the Vasus. And then he says, even in the case of the household priests, know me to be the chief, Brahaspati. Of generals, I am Skanda. In respect of lakes, I correspond to the ocean. Brahaspati is the traditional wisdom at the highest. He is patriarchal. And Purodhas is household rituals. He is like the master of ceremonies in a household ritual. That is Purodhas. And Brahaspati becomes the most important wisdom teacher. So this is what stands for positive spirituality, not just piety. When you talk of Skanda, god of war, Skanda means positive spirituality. You take action, you do something about it. Otherwise, just piety means you are standing with folded hands. But when you mention the name of Skanda, then he is a god, god of war, and he takes some positive steps. So positive spirituality comes in Skanda. Maharishi Nam Bhriguraham Giram Asmi Ekam Aksharam Yajnanam Japo Yajna Asmi Stavaranam Himalayah. So here Bhrigu is a rishi, it's a hermit. So among all the rishis, he is Bhrigu. And of articulated words, he is Om. Because Om is the most mystical of syllables. Everything is Om. Om iti etad aksharam idam sarvam. Everything can be included in Om. So that is the highest of articulated words. And of sacrifices or yajnas, I am the Japa Yajna. Japa Yajna means you are not repeating it aloud, but you are repeating it in your mind. You are doing Japa. So outward prayer is inferior to inward prayer. If a person is meditating and doing a Japa in his mind, that is considered to be superior to any overt, out loud, outspoken prayer. Of immovables, I am the Himalaya. Of the great hermit sages, I am Bhrigu. Of articulated words, I am the one syllable Om. Of sacrifices, I am the sacrifice of silent repetition. Of immovables, I am the Himalaya. Ashwatthah sarva vrikshanam. And of all the trees, I am Ashwatha. And of all divine sages, Narada. And of all the Gandharvas, Chitraratha. Gandharvas are heavenly beings, and they are related with Soma and healing. And Chitraratha is possessor of ornamental chariots. We can see every aspect from the traditions that existed, the Vedic traditions, the Rishi traditions, the household traditions, and contemplative traditions. From that cosmological ideas, he has picked each of those values which is the most prominent among them. And he said that that is a manifestation of me. We are talking of vibhutis here. We are talking of the divine manifestation. So when anywhere we see something which is radical, something which is unique, something which is strong, we say that is a manifestation of the divine. That is how the divine is seen in our day-to-day existence. In this very world that we are living in, we should be able to perceive. But how can we perceive that? Unless we have that contemplative mind, we cannot perceive it. That is the difference between a wise person and an unwise person. A wise person is seeing God everywhere, all the time. He is seeing the expression of God in so many things around. Smile of a person, the blossom of a flower, chirrup of a bird. Saint Francis of Assisi, he was a mystic. He hears God talking to him through the voice of a bird, through the blossom of a flower, through the moon. His consciousness becomes as if it is one with the whole of creation. And that is possible because of this contemplation, because of his inward ability to see. Here too, what he is saying is that all these most wonderful, unique values of every category, that is a part of the divine, starting from the self within us as our soul, and going on step by step to every item cosmologically, psychologically, theologically and mythologically. All the values that are surrounding us, each one will be taken one by one. They are not strictly religious, because later on he will speak of the gambler also. That determination of the gambler, that chance risk of the gambler, that also is me. So it is not a strictly religious categorization, but a different kind of categorization where everything that we see manifesting in any radical way, it has its source or it has its foundation in the Lord. Even the yajna that he mentions, Japo Yajna, silent repetition, is much more superior to the outward, overt expression. Siddhanam Kapila Munihi, those of Siddhis, he is Kapila, the founder of the Sankhya philosophy. So as you keep on reading, you will find all the prominent names and characters which come in all the scriptures and the traditions of India. They will find their name here, like Brahaspati, Narada, Bhrigu, Aditya, Samveda, Shankara and Om, etc. So like that we can string all the values that we see and consider them to be the expression of the divine here in our very life. As we said, now we are crossing over to the other side, where discussions will progressively become more and more overt till we are back in the objective world. So far we have been taken very much inward when we talk of the soul in the 9th chapter, 9th and the beginning of the 10th. We are talking of the Most High, that which is beyond all creation, indestructible and untainted by all this manifestation. From there, step by step, we have to be brought out again. Till the 18th chapter, we are back dealing with very day-to-day values then. And in the Gunatraya, Vibhaga Yoga, even matters of diet will come in, what we eat and how we worship. That is the scheme, if you understand the scheme of the Gita. Yet in spite of all this enumeration, he makes it very clear in the beginning that it is impossible to enumerate all. I will only give you a small account. And in the end of this chapter, he will say that this whole universe that you see is just a small fragment of my being. We think it is so vast, it is so great, and yet this is just a fraction of my being. So we can imagine how vast and how great is the Absolute. It is tremendous. So from Akshara, only a small amount trickles to become Ishvara. And from that also a small amount trickles to become this world. When we think of the original spirit, just a small part of it becomes Ishvara. And from that also, small part becomes this world. So what we experience here is only a small fragment of the totality, though it is so vast. So it is literally mind-blowing. And he says your mind cannot grasp it. The ordinary mind cannot even imagine what it is like to experience or to fully understand. And that is why even the rishis and the suras, they also cannot fully grasp. But a medium is given here, and that is yoga. Through the affiliation of yoga, proper bipolarity of yoga, by the grace of God, the compassion of God, you will begin to understand it. That is his assurance. The sadhana that is necessary is to have a non-wavering devotion, steady devotion, avikampena, and that steady devotion will have its reward in the form of realization, becoming fully knowledgeable about the self. Once you have knowledge about the self within, then you say you can see the manifestations outside too. So that is the goal of the contemplative life. The spiritual person is interested in having that kind of a vision. He is having a first-hand experience of the divine in this world itself. Not that you want to go to some other world, but in this world itself, if you are able to see how the divine forces are working, then that is a perfect yoga. And when he comes to the 26th verse, he says, Ashwathaha sarva vrikshanam devi rishinam cha naradaha. Ashwathaha is the pipal tree, Ficus religiosea in botanical language, also called Bodhi tree or Nirvana tree. It has been associated by the Jains and by the Hindus to have special religious association. It's not a tree of utility. When you think of a pine tree or you think of a teakwood tree, these are utility trees, useful for us. But an ashwatha is not a utility tree. It is only religiously associated. And therefore it has a special place as a tree which has some spiritual value, the pipal tree. Many sages perform their tapasya below the pipal tree. In fact, trees have very great significance in religious life. You say Panchavati, the garden of 5 trees. This was in Dakshineshwar where Sri Ramakrishna did his penance. So 5 different varieties of trees are to be planted, and there is a scheme as to which tree has to be planted on the north. The neem tree, the gooseberry amla tree, the pipal tree, vata tree, the banyan tree. So like that 5 trees are considered sacred, and your person is supposed to perform his meditations under these 5 trees. Of all these, again, Ashwatha is considered as a superior tree. It has roots above also. In the branches also you will see its roots, aerial roots. And so the same image is used in the 15th chapter also, as the holy Ashwatha tree with roots above and roots below. That we shall come when we study the 15th chapter. So of all trees, he says, I am Ashwatha. And of divine sages, that is the Deva Rishis, he is Narada. Narada also has a unique place as a go-between between the gods and the human beings. And as a revaluator of wisdom, he has restated the wisdom of the past. And Gandharvas. Gandharvas are special mythological beings, the divine musicians. And they occupy the higher regions of the atmosphere. So of Gandharvas, he is Chitraratha. Chitraratha means a person who had a beautiful chariot. Chitraratha. He is the chief of the Gandharvas. So he has an ornamental chariot. So among Gandharvas we name Chitraratha. And of those of psychophysical attainments, Kapila the recluse. Now Kapila Muni is one of the classical sages, Kapila and Patanjali. Kapila Muni has given us the Sankhya system, Darshana, Sankhya philosophy. And from the Sankhya philosophy we have got the concept of Prakriti, Purusha and the three gunas. This has come to us from Sankhya philosophy. And he is called Siddhanam Kapilo Muni. He has the Siddhis. Since Sankhya is a counterpart of Yoga, and the yogic attainments are 8 in number. They are Anima, Laghima, Mahima, Garima, Prapti, Prakamyam, Ishitvam, Vashitvam and Srimat. These are the 8 Siddhis, Ashta Siddhi. And these 8 Siddhis are the attainments of Kapila the recluse. Now we come to another set of values which is referring to ordinary creation. That is Uchchai Shravasam Ashwanam Vidhi Mam Amritodbhavam Airavatam Gajendranam Naranam Cha Naradhipam. Uchchai Shravasam is the horse of Indira. He was born out of the ambrosia. When the Samundar Manthan was done, then this horse was produced. He is the white horse of Indira. So among horses we have Uchchai Shravas. Vidhi Mam Amrita Udbhavam. Udbhav means to be born out of, to come out of. Amrita Udbhav means he came out of the ambrosia of immortality. This is reference to the Puranic story of the Samundar Manthan. And Gajendranam, of noble elephants, he is Airavata. That is also Indra's elephant. And of men, the king. So Uchchai Shravas is a very sensitive white horse with ears always pricked up. And Airavata is the noble elephant. And among men, the king is the most supreme. Qualitatively, though he is just like another human being, but in quality, the king is far superior. So we put the king as the best among the men. Then in 28 he says, Ayudhanam aham vajram, dhenunam asmi kamadhuk, prajanascha asmi kandarpaha, sarpanam asmi vasukihi. This is another set now. Ayudhanam, of weapons I am the thunderbolt. This is Indira's weapon, Vajram. And in Greek mythology also we have Zeus, the king of the gods. He also wields the thunderbolt. And of cows I am Kamaduk. Kamaduk is the heavenly cow who gives you whatever you desire. The heavenly cow which fulfills all your wishes. That is Kamaduk. Prajanam, of progenitors, Asmi Kandarpaha. Kandarpaha is Kamadev. So he is the one who gives us the principle of fecundity, the principle for creating people, increasing the progeny, they say, that is Kama. And Sarpanam I am Vasukihi. Vasuki is the chief of the snakes. And Vasuki refers to potency. So the snake is a symbol of potency. And Kamdev we spoke, he is a principle of fecundity. Anantascha asmi naganam varuno yadasam aham pitranam aryama cha asmi yamaha samayatam aham. Anantascha asmi naganam. I am Ananta of the Nagas, of the snakes. Now we go into the negative side. Snakes dwell in the nether regions. All the Nagas, he is Ananta. And Varunaha, of the denizens of the deep. Varuna again in Vedic concept, he is the god of the sea. And he is also the punisher and the rewarder also. And Pitranam, of ancestors, I am Aryama. So in the context of ancestor worship, those who worship the Pitras, in that context, Aryama is the highest, the chief. And Yama, that is god of death, he is of controllers. Yam means to control. So this idea of restrained also, that comes from Yama. Yama is the god of death and Yama is the controller. Though Yama also becomes a teacher in the Kathopanishad, where a young Nachiketas goes to Yama for instruction. So this Yama implies control. Now in 30 we come to Prahaladascha asmi daityanam kalaha kalayatamaham mriganam cha mrigendro aham vaineteyascha pakshinam. Prahlada was a Daitya, and Daityas are normally enemies of the gods, but Prahlad was exceptional case because he became a worshipper of Vishnu. We all know the story of Prahlada and Hiranyakashipa. So, among the Daityas, Prahlad, Kalaha Kalayatamaham, among the basis of measurement I am time, because time is the basis of the existential life that we have, and of beasts I am the lord of beasts, Mrigendraha, that is the lion, because of the majesty of the lion. And Vainateya is Garuda, that is Vanita and Kadru. These are the two sisters in the Mahabharata story. Kadru gives birth to all the snakes, and Vinita gives birth to 2 eggs, and they don't hatch for a long time, so she becomes impatient and she opens one of the eggs, and there she sees one of the children is half formed, and he curses her. He says, because of your greed you will have to serve as a slave for 500 years. And he disappears, and that has become Aruna, the dawn. So that is how dawn is sort of just half, stays for only a short while. The other egg became Garuda, and Garuda is the vehicle of Vishnu. And true to the curse, Vinita had to become a slave of Kadru for 500 years, till Garuda saves her. These are all Mahabharata stories. Then 31 he says, Pavanaha Pavatam Asmi, Ramaha Shastra Britamaham, Jashanam Makarascha Asmi, Srotasam Asmi Jahanavi. So of purifiers I am the wind, because wind is an ally of fire, and fire, as you know, is a great purifier along with water. And of bowmen I am Rama. In the Ramayana, every weapon that Ravan had, Rama had a better weapon. And finally there was nothing to beat the Ramban, the most absolute weapon. Jashanam, of fishes I am Makaraha. Makara is a mythological fish that's noted for its voracity. Means it eats everything, and therefore that is the most exceptional type of fish. And Srotrasam, of streams, Aham Jahanavi. Jahanavi is another name for Ganges. According to the mythological story, Ganges came down from the heavens because of the tapasya of Bhagirath. And Shiva received it in his matted hair, and he released it. And when it was flowing along, it entered into the hermitage of a hermit king called Jahanu. And this angered him, so he drank up the whole Ganges. King Bhagirath then entreated him, pleaded with him, so he let the river out of his ear. And after that, Ganges is also known as Jahanavi. So as we know, Ganges is the most important river. It has been bringing its water to the dry, arid plains of India, and so many people have been living on its banks. Plus it is a holy river. It is considered that if you take a dip in the Ganges, you wash all your sins. Sarganam adir antascha madhyam chaiva aham arjuna adhyatma vidya vidyanam vadaha pravaditam aham. This is another set now, category of speech, literature and branches of wisdom. So it says in the structure of cantos or chapters, I am the beginning, end and also the middle. Because as we know in any writing, it is the beginning, the end and the middle which is most important. O Arjuna, of the sciences, I am the science of the self. That is Atma Vidya. Of all the Shastras that we can study, the highest is Atma Vidya, science of the self. And I am dialectic of preeminent dialecticians. Dialectic is when two people have a discussion, and when the discussion is on some subtle subject like the self or absolute spiritual matters, then that becomes an art in itself, and that is called the art of dialectics. Aksharanam akaro asmi dvandvaha samasikasya cha. Of all the alphabets, I am the letter A. A is always praised as the first letter, and A is joined with all the other consonants to give our alphabet, so that is given the most prominence. And dvandvaha samasikasya. Dvandva samas is a way of compounding words. In Sanskrit, many words are joined together, compounded. Of these compounded words, the dvandva samasa is the best. It also implies that the absolute that we talk of, God that we talk of, cannot be conceived except by cancelling counterparts. So it's neither this nor that. If you want to have a vision of the Absolute, or if you want to understand the Absolute, you have to come to a neutral spot in your mind, which does not go on this side or that side. And that cancelling out must be done of counterparts, of all the opposites. And when this cancelling out is done, then you begin to appreciate what the Absolute is like. I am also unexpended time. I am the maintainer, universally facing. So when you say kalaha, pure duration is intuitively conceived. See, we have time as past, present and future, and time as pure duration, that is the eternal present, which is the real time. Really speaking, there is no time. It is only an eternal duration or a pure duration. That is what is referred to here. And aham dhata, I am the maintainer, vishvato mukhaha, universally facing. This means that all the directions of the compass and more are included. Mrityuhu sarvaharascha udbhavascha bhavishyatam kirtihi shrirvakcha narinam smritir medha dhritihi kshama. Now we go to retrospective and prospective values, the creative principle. When you say mrityuhu, death, that is retrospective, you are going backwards. And when you talk of udbhava, the source, that is prospective, you are looking into the future. And of womanly values, according to the commentaries, he says woman represents nature or becoming more than man. And so the woman's example is taken. Also masculine virtues have already been discussed in the past as Naradhipam, the king, and also Balavatam Asmi, the strength in the male. So here we come across Kirtihi Shrirvak Chanarinam Smriti Medha Dhritihi Kshama. When you say Kirtihi, that is fame and reputation. And when you say Shri, that is grace or well-being, which suggests harmony. Nataraja Guru says a woman who is worried or in want may be said to lose this grace. So when Shri goes away, a woman becomes a nagging nuisance. Vak. Vak is the ability not just to chatter but to be apt and have a pleasing use of speech. This implies a correct adjustment of personality, which is not too positive into exaltation nor negatively into depression. And smriti means memory, which gives depth to human personality. Without memory, a person easily becomes a misfit. Medha means willpower to take firm decisions. And dhriti means firmness, which usually is expressed in times of disaster. At those times, the firmness and presence of mind, you can say that would be dhriti. And kshama is endurance. So Florence Nightingale, Sita, Shakuntala, these are all examples of kshama. Then 35, Brahat Sama Tatha Samnam Gayatri Chandasamaham Masanam Margasirshoaham Ritunam Kusumakaraha. So now we enter into another category. These are values of luxury. When he says, of hymns I am the Brahat Sama, of meters I am the Gayatri. Brahat Sama comes in the Samaveda. And as you know, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, the same Rig Veda mantras, when they are tuned to music, they become Samaveda. In a traditional yajna, at the end, after the yajna is over, you chant the Samaveda. Then Aham Gayatri, of all the meters, that is Chandas, I am Gayatri. Gayatri itself means that which saves you when you sing it. Gaya means to sing. Tri comes from Trata, which means to save. Just like mantra, mananat trayati iti mantra. That which saves you when you meditate on it is a mantra. And that which saves you when you chant it, that is the Gayatri. And Gayatri is what is known as Anushtup meter. Each line has 8 syllables. That kind of a composition is called a Gayatri. Masanam of months, Margasirshaha. That is the season just after the harvest. So the land is fallow, it's just too early to replant, and it's a time of leisure and rejoicement. And of ritus, of seasons, Kusumakaraha, flower abounding. So naturally that is the best part of any season, when the flowers are abounding, value of nature. So, as you can see, these refer to categories where a person has leisure or luxury. Dyutanam chalayatam asmi tejasvinam jayo asmi vyavasayo asmi sattvam sattvavatam aham. The interesting thing to note here is that the Gita does not restrict itself to religious holiness itself. All values are included in a universal way of looking at all values. Because even the chance risk that a gambler takes, that attitude which a gambler has, in which he is willing to risk everything, trying his luck, that carefree nature also is considered as one of the vibhutis of the Lord. So I am the chance risk of irresponsible gamblers. I am the brilliance of brilliant people. That is the tejas. So we speak of Brahma tejas and Kshatriya tejas. Brahma tejas is the love for truth, for upholding truth. And Kshatriya tejas is the love for actualizing that, seeing that it is carried out. So that tejas or brightness that we have, brilliance, that is also a vibhuti of the Lord. And vyavasayasya, I am decisiveness. Aham sattvam, I am goodness of those established in the real. Now, almost like a signature, he puts his own name and that of Krishna here. When he says, of Vrishnis I am Vasudeva. Vrishnis was a clan of people to whom Krishna belonged. And of the Pandavas, as we know, Dhananjaya, Arjuna. Of the recluses, Munis, he is Vyasa. And of poets, he is the poet Ushana. Ushana was a poet teacher of the Daityas, not of the Devas. And he wrote the kavyas or epics rather than shastras. He did not write shastra, but he wrote epics. Dando damayatam asmi nitirasmi jigishitam maunam chaiva asmi guhyanam jnananam jnanavatam aham. Here we have items of signs and figures. When we talk of damayatam, of rulers, I am scepter, the danda. Just like in the parliament here, they take the mace first. That's the danda, symbol of authority. And jigishatam, of those who seek victory, I am statesmanship. And guhyanam, in esoterics, I am silence. And of knowers, I am knowledge. Because certain things are effective only if they are kept as secrets, if they are not analyzed and if they are not exposed. That is esoteric, so that is also a value. And naturally, knowledge of knowers. So here in this set you have to take the figurative meaning, not the literal meaning. That is the lakshana artha. And that takes us to 39. Yaccha api sarva bhutanam bijam tadaham arjuna na tad asti vina yatsyan maya bhutam characharam. So when he says I am the seed, and further what is seed of all beings that I am. Seed here he is speaking of the neutral core, the core as neutral ground, as the seed of all. The same idea comes in the 7th chapter also. Bijaham sarva bhutanam. I am the seed of all. And there he speaks of buddhir buddhimatam asmi. Here earlier he has spoken of knowledge. Of knowers I am knowledge and also the seed. Nor is there anything moving or unmoving that can exist without me. So when you meditate on this, it takes you to the neutral ground, the ground of everything. And that is what is the Absolute. The Absolute is the ground of everything, from which everything has come. Everything has evolved, both moving and unmoving. Then he says, Na anto asti mama divyanam vibhutinam parantapa esha tu uddeshataha prokto vibhuter vistaro maya. There is no end to my divine unique values, O Parantapa. What has been said of these unique values is but indicatory of their possible extensive elaboration. So there are two ways to know this Absolute. One is numerically, you keep on elaborating, but that will never end. And the other is unitively or intuitively. Intuitively we get the whole understanding. But if you numerically try to understand, that you will never be able to understand. That is why he says Vistaraha. Vistaraha means by listing one after the other. There is a saying by a person called Bergson that Absolute is like a gold coin for which you can never find enough small change to equal that one supreme gold coin. So when you start elaborating numerically, that is like the small change of that one supreme value which is the Absolute. So here he says there is no end to my divine unique values. You can go on elaborating, you will find new values will surface. This is something like this fractal also. In fractals, certain patterns, infinitely they will repeat themselves. Or when they say, can you measure a coastline? It will turn out to be infinity. If you measure it according to miles, you will get a certain length. Then you decide to measure it by feet, you will find that the reading will change. Then if you decide to measure it by inches, you will find you will get new twists and curves, and you will get a new figure. And then if you decide to measure it by centimeters, you will get even further extensions. So it will keep on elaborating, and you will never be able to measure. Similarly, if we also try to elaborate in this way, one unique value after another, you will find newer and newer extensions coming out, and it will never end. But for our understanding, we say whatever entity is unique in perfected value, yadyad vibhutimat sattvam srimad urjitam evacha tattadeva eva gachatvam mama tejaha amsha sambhavam. Whatever entity is unique in perfected value, in grace or in radical strength, understand that to have manifested itself from a mere fractional spark of my brilliance. So, unique values, vibhutimat, grace or abundance, harmony or order, and that is srimat. And anything that stands for vigor, strength, and that is urjitam, dominating power or a positive attitude in general, which derives its validity from truth. So into these three categories you can fit all the values. Whichever unique value that has come from the Lord, wherever you see unique values or grace or extreme vigor and strength, then you say this is a vibhuti of the Lord. That takes you to Athava bahuna tena kim jnatena tava arjuna vishtabhya aham idam kritsnam ekam sena stito jagat. So he says, what use is there for you in this pluralistic knowledge, supporting this whole world by a single fraction of myself? I remain still as ever. As we said, this is pluralistic knowledge. You can know unitively or you can know pluralistically. This leads us to the Purnamadaha Purnamidam, because whatever we see here is but a fraction of the glory and the grace of the Lord. And when we try to imagine what is the true nature, that is very vast, very big. And even this whole universe that we see, anything that we see manifested is only a spark, just a small fragment coming from the Absolute. So again we can think of Vibhutimat, those forward-flowing urges of the Absolute Principle, that is Vibhutimat. Those in which the neutral balancing, that is Srimat. And those in which there is radical, stable validity or lasting aspect of Absolute Truth, that is Urjitam. So in this way we can see how this Absolute, how is God manifesting in our lives? How do we recognize the powers of God in our day-to-day life? If we have this vision, if we have this ability to recognize that this is Srimat, this is Urjitam, this is Vibhutimat, then we can actually see how God is penetrating His own manifestation all the time. And that is a great ability to do. So from the vision of the Gita, we should be able to see this manifestation in our life itself. And we should be able to see which of these qualities is functioning in us itself. What is the Srimat in us? What is the Urjitam in us? What is the Vibhutimat in us? What is the unique value in us? What is that which is bringing us grace and balance? And what is enduring in us? So if we can recognize that value within us, then we can see the divine Vibhutis that are operating in us. Everybody has it, but we probably don't know how to recognize it. Human psyche means our own mind is representative of the cosmological and psychological richness of the total manifestation. When we look outside, that is the cosmological manifestation. When we look within our minds, that is the psychological manifestation. And it is the same Absolute. The source of both these is just the same. It is one Absolute which is manifesting as the cosmos outside and as the psychos within us. And is capable of holding out all the three general principles of all unique values, Vibhutimat, Srimat and Urjitam. When this is thought of in terms of an individual, the Vibhuti can be taken for those rare and unique characteristics of the personality that make a person what they are. Some of these values never get a chance to unfold themselves. To do justice to the Vibhuti, one has to develop a great inner awareness by which one can make oneself familiar with their own vibhuti. That is where our contemplative life comes in, solitude comes in. We should have times of solitude when we can sit with our own self and we can look into ourselves and discover our own vibhuti. Srimat is a value which can be compared to grace, abundance, harmony or order. In a haphazard life, these inner potentials get seriously damaged, and so the beauty of life turns into ugliness as one grows up. All children are born beautiful. As they grow up, the horizontal forces of life corrode this spiritual charm and harmony. Hence, one desirous of walking in the spiritual path has to open up his or her own inner potentials. He should be like an unfailing luminary, lending its light to all who need it. Such a person should stand like a reservoir of grace to benefit the whole world. The third quality, urjitam, stands for vigor and strength, a positive attitude deriving its validity from truth. When we set out to do something and that action is based on some truthful principle, then we say that is urjitam. And when you look into our life, if there is order and harmony and abundance, you say that is the Srimat. And if you look into our lives and see what is unique in us, that is vibhuti. So that is how we have to be able to actually experience. When you're speaking of experiencing, that experience has to be in our here and now existence. It has not to be in some distant future. But in our here and now existence, we have to recognize that value and then develop it, just like a spark. The spark can be fanned, it can become a huge flame, conflagration. Similarly, we have to discover the spark of divinity and the spark of spiritual qualities in us. And then we have to fan them, or we have to cultivate them, develop them, till one day they become full-blown. So that is how the actual transformation must take place. So all the sadhana that we do, whether you are practicing yoga or you are practicing dhyana yoga or you are practicing knowledge, buddhi yoga, and you are trying to learn, whatever we do, all of that should relate to that quality in us and develop that quality. Then you say you are having a proper spiritual progress or spiritual orientation. On one side we have the absolute, and we say absolute is so vast and so enormous, unimaginable, beyond the mind's capacity to grasp. On the other side is our own psyche, but the psyche is a representation of that cosmos. It's just like it's happening in different levels. Just like we are breathing in and breathing out, the whole cosmos is breathing in and breathing out. Just like we have day and night, the cosmos has day and night. So it's the same principle which is magnified many times over that becomes the vastness of the cosmos or the littleness of the individual. That is how when we link ourselves with the bipolarity, with our little self, we link with the absolute. And then that absolute is working itself through us. We are representatives of that absolute. So we are not separate from it. Then we have to recognize where is it located in us. For that we have to be able to sit with ourselves and to search for it, look for it, and recognize it when it is there. So this is a very nice method of actualizing our own potentials. What is the result of this? The result is we start feeling more and more free. We become independent. We start experiencing the power and the force and the knowledge of the Lord coming in us as intuitions. Intuition means it's a strong understanding which just comes on its own. We just start knowing. You can't explain how you know. It's not logical, it's intuitive. It is coming to you as an intuition. A conviction comes because of intuition. So this is a real possibility if we are able to sit with it for a while. The world is nothing but the peripheral aspect of the mind. And once the mind goes into the peripheral side, it loses its touch with its own spirit center. There must be a way to come back to the spirit center and then go back into the world again. If you have that technique, ability to do this, back and forth movements, then you will begin to understand. So each person has to do it. You have to actually practice. It can't be given to you by somebody. At the most, somebody can point out to you or show the way. But each person has to sit with it, do the actual experiment, if you please, or the effort. Krishna is giving us a hint as to how to recognize by giving us all these categories, by naming the most unique value in each category. He explains how in this world of manifestation itself, you can see the functioning of the Lord itself.